Welcome back to V-Rule. Today's Wednesday, which means we are looking at our Wednesday works of art. I go through each set, or at least I'm attempting to go through each set, and review artworks. Now, it's really difficult to get through the entirety of the set, so I'm a little bit more selective about the cards that I do pull out. But today, we are still in the Sword and Shield era, and let's dive in. We have Sword and Shield Chilling Reign on our list today. We've gone through all of these, folks. If you didn't see them before, go back. There's a few things that are obvious ones that I'm not going to take the time to go and critique, like the Trick or Trade ones, or just jumping into promos yet until the series is complete. The match battle, I don't think I did that one either. So certain things that I'm not going to go through, but if a new set comes out, I go back to that one, back in the sequence of things, and do that and review the artworks there. But for the most part, I'm just going in order of the most modern and working my way backwards, and we are down to Chilling Reign here in Sword and Shield. We're actually going to be closing this out in a few weeks, it looks like, and then it'll be on to Sun and Moon. So Chilling Reign has a lot of cool stuff in it. It's a pretty decently large set. What do we have in total here? 198 cards, 35 secret rares. All right, so that puts it at 133 cards total. This set came out in 2021. This is at the hype of the boom here that we've most recently seen, although most recent is a little bit questionable to say because I think we might be in one right now. We kind of surpass all the things like the regular Vs and VMAX from the main series set. We focus on the secret rares, one, for their rarity, and two, the artwork focus seems to be a little bit more heavy, leaning that way. If you want to take the time, I always like to recommend it. Just look through the set and see some things. For a lot of the full arts, some really pop. I really like a lot of the full arts that we see throughout the set here. These full art trainers have a lot going for them. I'm not especially prone to be a full art trainer collector or a trainer specific collector, but I know there's a lot of people who are. So there's some interesting cards to review there. The rainbow rares, I think there's several that have pretty good price tags to them, but for the most part, rainbow rares seem to be somewhat affordable when it comes to single cards, and I think they will have their day sometime. But for now, it might be an interesting little side collection if that's something you're into. Who doesn't like a good gold card? Well, seems like the community doesn't like a good gold card because for the most part they're reasonably affordable except for the big hitters, one of which was the Snorlax gold from Chilling Reign. That had a decent price tag to it. Won't be in our contention today, but we are going to focus on the alternate arts because we have a set of 13 alternate arts that we can do that with. That's enough of a sampling, and if you're familiar with how I do things now, I put them into my rankings right off the bat here. I start out with my true artworks. I have another tier of still art. I have neutral and not going to last. Now, the way I've been breaking this down recently, where I've pre-selected these things, for the most part, they're going to fall into those true artwork or still art categories because it's such a small sampling that I'm even looking at. If I were to be getting into the full arts and full art trainers, there's going to be a lot more in the neutral, even into the not going to last, if I consider the rainbow rares. And for sure, in earlier videos, I did a lot more, a wider range of cards from the sets, but it was just too time consuming, and I wanted to niche down and focus in on specific artworks, just pull out 3 for each video and just really dive into why and critique it and look at some of those compositional elements that make it speak to me. Now, I want to point out one thing before I get into that final critique. One thing here is I've always had trouble with the still art category because to me it's kind of 3 tiers. It's still art, but it kind of falls short a little bit. It's not quite neutral. I'm not really indifferent about it, and it's also still art, and it looks really good, but it's missing something to reach that true artwork. So typically I have a wider range of cards in that still art category, and one that teetered back and forth in just setting this up was the Tornadus V. I really wanted to put it in still art, and I think I figured out why. I don't like this Pokemon. I don't care for it. It's not exciting to me. I don't think Tornadus is really that cool or anything, and it could be me. Maybe you feel differently. In fact, comment down below and use that as part of being a part of V-Rule, because with your comment I'd also like for you to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to get to 4,000 subscribers, at which point I'm giving away a Pokemon 151 poster collection, and I'm giving away 2 3-pack blisters of Surging Sparks, as well as 5 Pokemon mystery card lots that I'm building myself for you, going out to 8 winners overall. Once we reach the 4,000 subscriber mark, see all these other channels, they do these really cool giveaways, and they're long-winded like this one is, where you got to reach a certain target or a certain goal, but they only have one prize, and that's really not cool because it's one out of however many people are entered. I want to give a little bit better odds, a little bit better chance, and maybe a handful of people can get some enjoyment out of this. So take that extra step and make sure we compile all these comments into one place. Go over to this video here. That's the one where I'm going to be pulling winners from. But let's get back into our video here today. That Tornadus V was just not really something that I was drawn to. Not a fan of the Pokemon. If you feel differently, tell me. But the artwork is there. It holds up. There's enough happening, enough depth. The fact that he's, in this big action pose here, they're all swirling around, getting sucked in. Yeah, I don't want to walk into that scene, So there's a little bit more of a storytelling there. Just a side note, a little bit, because I don't want to give it too much weight. I'm not going to spend time on it. The other ones are in their categories, and I felt fairly confident in that. We could see a little bit larger some of these as I just kind of peruse through here on TCG Player, just so you can get a better look at some of these. And you can pause it, slow it down, or go look for yourself and take a look at the set as a whole. Just searching Chilling Reign and taking a look at some of these bigger hitters. And to be honest, if you're looking to pick up some alt arts, it looks like there's some fair prices on some of the lower tier ones, for sure lower tier, but still alt arts are pretty darn rare across the board. But let's look at 3 different ones and just kind of critique what we're looking at here. I really liked the Ice Rider Calyrex. I prefer the Shadow Rider card over the Ice Rider. I prefer the Shadow Rider Pokemon over Ice Rider. However, this artwork was worth discussing. I really was trying to see, just at a glance, it's got a nice scene to it, a really good light, a lot of shades of blue. It has that ice feel to it. Ice isn't always blue, but we do associate the two with the cold, the cooler colors, and it's very easy in that way. You have other Pokemon in here making their cameo within, and that's interesting to me, and a little bit more painterly in the background where we have these mountains, but then you just take a second. You take just a little bit deeper dive. As you go further back, the quality of the lines, the quality of the dimension that's being shared is lesser and lesser as you go back. You see a lot of more pixelated shapes, more squared off edges, really just stamped almost what would be brush strokes. I know it's not really painted, but it gives it a different quality where it kind of brings it into that like Game Boy feel, where we know it's not real, but we've encountered this before. We've been in this place. And then you start bringing it back to the front to see if it's there, and you start finding these other little Easter eggs showing up, that this stomping right here turns into this huge snowflake across the ground. It gives it this really cool design underneath. So all these little things just start speaking to each other back and forth and back and forth. We got nice highlights coming off the mountain, and then just trickling across the top of each of these Pokemon, giving us a nice highlight on the backside here for the Ice Rider Calyrex V. Really great light. As far as it being somewhat simple, it really does a good job of communicating a lot of things and using a lot of different skill sets in having some artistic style within this one. Going over to Galarian Rapidash V. Now, this one, it's really not incredibly popular at a $40 alt art card. That's really not bad, and it might even be less than that. No, it's about $40. Okay, so it seems a little bit simple. Like, okay, great, we got a lot of flowers here, a little bit of this glow look done, and in some cases I've seen artworks like that where it has a lot going on, but it just stops quickly and it resolves itself. So I move on. I've absorbed what I needed to out of it, and I can go from there. However, I think this one takes it a step further, and in art, whether it's a still life of something, as a painted portrait or a photograph, flowers have been very common. Studying nature has been a very common thing within artwork, that those organic lines, the different geometric shapes in the natural world that speak to us here, really help emphasize this relationship from viewer to what's being viewed in this artwork here. And I think a lot of that is being at play here. Just the colors dancing across the scene, mimicking our Galarian Rapidash here, the different colors dancing across. We have a lot of alternating pattern of light into dark, into light, into dark, into light, into dark. And it just keeps repeating in that way. What is this band of light here? I am not sure what that is, if it's coming from as a result of the horn here. I don't know. Is that what's illuminating everything? It's got that look to it, but the fact that this brush is on leaves a little bit of a mystery. There's a lot of whimsy in here, how it keeps wrapping around and it's engulfing us, all these little twinkling lights all over. The mimicking shapes and feeling of the natural flowers, the curves going through, being replicated throughout, coming back around here and bringing it over into this big wisp. Like, just lots of little details that keep us circling in this image, and that's where I get stuck. So while the direct communication of it, this floral into this horse, and yay, done. Resolves itself somewhat quickly. If you give it a second, there's a lot of things that just keep you in this perpetual cycle of bouncing back and forth into the foreground, into the background, to the Pokemon, to the scenery. All these little details keep popping up, and it has a bit of chaos, but it's well organized, and I think that's what kind of speaks to me for this particular artwork. Maybe I'm reading into it deeper than others might, or maybe I'm letting you see things differently that you might otherwise have passed over. It would be really interesting if this critique were to have an effect on people and let them start viewing the artworks differently, because I think the common thread on the higher pulls, not just the pull rates, not just the rarity, but it's the artwork this day and age. There is some amazing artwork being created, and we're so spoiled by that. So I want to take some time to just appreciate it, whether it's to these specific artists and what they've done, or just to the franchise as a whole and what they're capable of. It's pretty phenomenal that we live in this day and age and get to enjoy it in this way. Lastly, I want to go over Galarian Moltres V. Now, this one could also be simple. It's very simplistic in a Pokemon, a background, flat, done. However, I start looking at patterns. I start looking at little details, and this one, again, I feel like Chilling Reign was somewhat of a complex art collection because of how repetitive it becomes, that you're looking at one thing and you see another, and you look to that and it brings you around to another. This one has a really good pattern of light into dark into light into dark into light on both sides. Symmetry, nice split down the middle right here. You have a good symmetry. We have the moon behind the Moltres, really cool, but we have a small moon right here being chopped away and cropped out for us by the wings. The coloring of the Pokemon itself is that much more interesting, but then it brings us to this little pattern down here. What's going on in this pattern? I can't really tell. It seems like it could be some fun little thing interesting here, but now I'm starting to see these eyes are popping up, and these eyes look very sinister and, really creepy and worrisome. Is this Moltres overseeing a bunch of minions that are here that are going to be unleashed to us? I don't know. Is this really a pattern that we're seeing, or are these trees that are starting to show up in a pine forest of some sort? What am I really looking at? It's open to interpretation because it's a little bit more abstract. However, I think that's part of the draw and what brings you in. Now we have all these trees just directing us, pointing with aggression, these hard arrows aiming. This is your focal point. This V right here is the Moltres V. I don't know if that's intentional. However, it feels really good to match it with the titling now. And we have the crazy flares of the flames coming out everywhere, but not in a color of fire, in these more bold colors, very strict colors, very split between pure dark black and these magentas into reds pouring out all over, these talons reaching out towards us. I wouldn't want to be in this scene. It creates that legendary bird that you want to encounter, but you want to be a little bit weary because that's intense, and it should be. And I think that intensity is really driven home. It's nighttime. We got the moon here. All of those things start coming into play and telling the story of this card. Why it's definitely up there as one of the biggest pulls. And just a little note to the biggest pull of this set, the Blaziken VMAX. I wasn't really going to dive into this, but it has a very Game Boy feel to me. That's what I'm getting out of it. Yes, there's a nice sunset. Yes, we have a little light across the water, these little islands, but just the way this is built out, everything here feels like a Game Boy scene, and it kind of falls short in that way. Definitely, a worthy art for sure, but that was my explanation and why I put it in the still art. Even though it's the high price, it's the chase of the set, it's an iconic Pokemon, it just kind of falls short for me. Now, you might disagree. Maybe you like it. I don't know. Let me know. Use that as your comment when you go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to the video and to the channel. Be a part of V-Rule. I post 7 days a week. Also, joining in and being a part to possibly get your hand at this poster collection from 151, the 2 3-pack blisters from Surging Sparks, and the 5 Pokemon mystery card lots. Those are going out to 8 winners. Once we reach the 4,000 subs, I say earlier in the video exactly what you need to do, but thank you for tuning in today, and I hope it was at least entertaining, maybe interesting, and eye-opening on how to look at these artworks in a different light. So I post 7 days a week, which means I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.